Hey there, everyone. Love and light. This is Cameron Whitten, founder and CEO for racial justice nonprofit Brown Hope. And what I'm doing today is making a recording to talk about the background of Brown Hope, our history, our mission, our vision, our programs, the impact that we currently are having in the community, and also ways that you can be engaged in our movement for racial healing. And so we're going to cover a lot during this brief introductory video. If you have questions, if you want to learn more about Brown Hope and find information that we don't cover in this video, I really encourage you to go to our website, which is www.brownhope.org. So I thank you for listening in, and yeah, let us inspire a healing movement, a beautiful, diverse, and powerful movement for racial healing together. All right, I'm gonna share my screen and we will get this presentation started. Here we are. This is Brown Hope. And so Brown Hope is a racial justice nonprofit that is based in the Portland, Oregon region, and we've been serving this region since 2018. And Brown Hope's mission as a nonprofit is to plant and nurture seeds for racial justice and healing. We serve and mobilize communities in order to heal our collective soil from the poisons of our past and present so our future roots can thrive. Our vision is that the seeds we plant will flourish into the fruits of justice, healing, and love for every person, every community, and the entire world. And so we're going to go a quick overview around the story and history of Brown Hope's origins. And as the founder of Brown Hope, so much of its founding story is just tied to my own life story. And so I am not originally from Oregon. I was raised on the East Coast in Virginia. And I first came to Oregon in 2009 at the age of 18. And I ended up my very, very first day in Oregon, I ended up at the house of my friend's dad in Albany, Oregon, which is about 2 hours outside of Portland. And the very, very first night that I stayed in Oregon at this person's house, the day after we were asked to leave, and we were told that the dad said he was uncomfortable having a black man in his home. That was my very first experience coming to Oregon, and it was a shock that I was denied something as basic as housing because of the color of my skin. And that one act directly led to me becoming a homeless youth on the streets of Portland. Thankfully, I had access to a safety net and the Homeless Youth Continuum and the nonprofits that serve homeless youth here in Portland, and able to do the work that I do today as a nonprofit leader. However, I have had to learn in all of that time since 2009 how the racial trauma and the racial injustice I experienced my very first day in Oregon wasn't strange and it wasn't abnormal. It's actually far too common to experience racism as a daily experience here in the community where I live. And so I continued to live in Oregon. And up into Brown Hope's official founding in 2018, I had been in Oregon for almost a decade. And I remember it was 2017 and I finally had landed what I believed was my dream job. And I was working as a staffer within the city of Portland. And, I, like many other Black, Brown, Indigenous employees of the city, were experiencing unfair treatment. And myself, within 6 months of being in this dream job, I find myself being terminated without any warning, any notice whatsoever. And it really created a breaking point for me, where I asked myself, what was I still doing in this place where I had experienced challenge after challenge, setback, adversity, microaggressions, macroaggressions, racialized violence. And I came to this realization for myself that I had planted my roots and soil that was poisoned. And I knew that because of the legacy and the history of Oregon, especially as the only state in the entire United States when it was originally constitutionalized and founded into statehood to be a whites only utopia, and was founded with specific exclusion laws that made it so that only white people could legally live in the state without retaliation. And to see the way that that legacy continued to haunt people who looked like me to this day. And so here I am in 2018, exhausted, and asking myself, what am I still doing here? And I had made up my mind that it was time for me to leave Portland. However, something changed just 2 days after coming to that decision. I wake up on a March morning in 2018, and as I'm laying there in bed, I experienced this epiphany that changed my life forever. I remember just laying there in bed, and I felt this blue light fill my mind, and I heard just 8 words whispered in my ear. Portland needs a Red Cross for Black people. I was immediately inspired, and I just felt this amazing energy coursing through my body like a wave of acceptance and of healing and of love. And I knew in that moment, every single person needed to have that feeling every day of their life. And so within 15 minutes of this experience, I had come up with the name Brown Hope. And at the time, we didn't have a website, we didn't have any programs, and we definitely didn't have any money. But I knew with this clarity and this certainty that March morning in 2018 that this name and this feeling was going to take us places. And so we got started. And the first thing we started with is a group that is still with us to this day, and it's called the Action Team. And the Action Team is really a space for people who are interested in this mission of racial healing to come together and take action, collective sustained action. And we started having monthly meetings in April of 2018. And it was a space for any person who was interested in doing the work of racial justice and racial healing to come together. We especially did a call out for people who we identify as racially privileged allies. And that can mean whatever that means to you. But we were really saying, if you identify somebody who has racial privilege, as an act of reparations, as an act for racial healing, you are welcome to direct your time and your energy to the Action Team and be a part of this collaborative movement for the future. And so that's how we started with these monthly meetings. And we talked about all sorts of things around, we need to create a website. We need to look at our social media platforms. We need childcare at events. We need ideas for events. We need help with fundraising and reaching out to businesses. The Action Team was really grassroots and helped us with a lot of heavy lifting in the early days of our organization. And it was 100%, Brown Hope was 100% volunteer operated when we started in 2018. And then we started with our programs. Our very first ever program was called Reparations Happy Hour, which happened in May of 2018. And then just 2 months later, we had our second major collaboration, which was Blackstreet Bakery, an economic development program, which we started in July of 2018. So here are some photos from Reparations Happy Hour in 2018, our very first program. And this was a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous people living in Portland, Oregon to come together to build community, to heal collectively from the impacts of reparations, impacts of racism. And we also made this as a time and a space for us to elevate reparations and actually give cash, $10 cash, to Black, Brown, Indigenous people in this community in the spirit of reparations, as an intentional act of reparations, acknowledging that we are doing this work of creating the next chapter for Oregon and a beautiful, diverse future where all of us thrive of all racial backgrounds. And here we have these folks who are spending that time doing that work, and we have racially privileged allies who donated so that we could fairly compensate people for the work that they're doing of building this community. And so it was a great success, and it even led to us getting this amazing news coverage, which a lot of people have heard about, which was an interview on Fox News with the Tucker Carlson Show. I encourage you to find it on YouTube. It's an amazing interview. So another program we did in 2016, which was in July, was an event we called Interdependence Day. And again, this was a space for us to come together around food, talking about what does thriving mean to us? What does it mean for us to start building a community that is resilient and empowered and making a positive difference, and also experiencing the joy and the freedom, being interdependent together. We mobilized into our next initiative, which was called Blackstreet Bakery, an economic development program that actually brought together Black people to have economic opportunities in plant-based baking. We first kicked off at the Mississippi Street Fair in July of 2018, and it became a long-running program for Brown Hope for years. And we employed, over a dozen Black bakers based here in Portland, and we really elevated this idea of regenerative economics and how do we create income and wealth building opportunities that really uplift our frontline communities. So we were doing a lot in 2018, and it was just amazing to already see our work in going forward in positive motion. And so that was Brown Hope of 2018, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the Brown Hope of 2025 and the Brown Hope of today. And so I really want to take a moment and talk about our problem statement. When we're thinking about the challenges that are in this world, and let's be honest, the challenges are daunting, how can we acknowledge the challenges and the obstacles, but also how can we be open to the vision and the solutions? And how can we emerge into that better future that we all need and deserve? And so Brown Hope has spent a lot of time working on our theory of change and to really be able to create a story and a narrative that helps all of us better understand the context of how we got to where we are today as a common humanity, and what are the challenges, but also what are the opportunities for us moving forward. And so the first place that we start is our problem statement here. And so when we really talk about the issue and the crisis that our mission and our organization was created to address and to solve, for Brown Hope, we talk about the racial trauma crisis. And what that means is racial trauma has impacted Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities for centuries, passing wounding from generation to generation. The legacy and ongoing consequences of racial trauma are material, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. These traumas serve as a formidable obstacle for Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, both for our livelihoods, but also for our long-term efforts to grow a world free from racism. And so here's when we start getting more to that vision space of how do we address the racial trauma crisis? And for Brown Hope, it's simple: healing. And at Brown Hope, healing means liberation. We work to liberate ourselves from the lies of racism and white supremacy every single day. Any attempts to devalue or harm Black, Brown, and Indigenous lives are invalidated by our inherent worth. Through inner transformation, we make injustice powerless against us. Brown Hope creates and delivers effective solutions to heal from racial trauma and make our dreams a reality. So with that, Another way that we really guide and inform the work we do as an organization are the 12 Principles of Hope. The 12 Principles of Hope have been around since Brown Hope was first started in 2018. And if you go to the Brown Hope website at www.brownhope.org, you will see that each one of these 12 principles has a definition that we remember and we reflect on our actions and the work that we do to really make sure that we are keeping ourselves true to the principles that really guide and are our North Star as an organization. And so those 12 principles are anti-racism, ancestry, representation, collectiveness, justice, love, intersectionality, authenticity, resilience, initiative, access, and abundance. You can find definitions for all of these 12 principles on the Brown Hope website. We also have on the Brown Hope website our core strategies. And so we really take a lot more time to flesh out these concepts. We have this mission, we have this vision, we have these 12 principles, but how does that actually lead to the tangible impact that we're looking for? We go into deeper detail around our theory of change with our core strategies, also on the Brown Hope website. And so we have these 4 core strategies that we developed to really create an accessible framework for people to understand when we put on a program, when we write an email, when we are tabling in the community, the way, the culture, and the approach and the philosophy of how we do that are directly informed by these 4 core strategies. And so those core strategies are nourishing love and abundance, building multiracial momentum, inspiring healing justice, and planting seeds of change. What I want to say quickly about these 4 core strategies is there is really innovative, inspiring work that Brown Hope has done that this world has never seen before. Brown Hope has made history happen time and time again. That has not been an accident. It has been an act of radical intention, very much guided by our 4 core strategies. So I feel very passionate about these, and I encourage you to go to the Brown Hope website and learn about them in your free time. We have programs, and because of the partnerships we have in the community, Brown Hope does a lot of collaboration with government agencies, with local businesses, with other nonprofits, with faith communities, and more. And so we do a lot of one-off programs and partnerships, but we also have core programs that are unique to Brown Hope, that we are the parent organization of these programs. And they have really, great impact, they have really great names, and they really have distinct important missions of themselves for the communities that they serve. And so the 4 core programs that we currently have within Brown Hope are Healing Initiatives, Power Hour, Equity and Beyond, and Black Resilience Fund. And all that information is also on the Brown Hope website. I do want to give a special shout out to the Black Resilience Fund because, as I said earlier, in 2018, Brown Hope was created and it was 100% volunteer-led nonprofit. That changed in 2020, which was really, as you know, a time of racial uprising for the entire nation. And this was all a catalyst by the murder of George Floyd, who was murdered Memorial Day weekend on May 25th of 2020. And Portland, like every other major city in this country, was shaken and uprooted in this upheaval of people in the streets protesting, demanding change. And you were getting all these pledges and promises from businesses and government for there to be more accountability around racial justice. Something happened in Portland that we didn't see happen in other places in this country. And that was the Black Resilience Fund, which was this very grassroots movement to be an economic lifeline, to breathe air into the communities living here in Portland. We had Black communities who were grappling with the dual shock waves of COVID-19 and systemic racism, who were here literally at the cracks of society about to fall into catastrophe. And how could we actually create pathways for them to not only survive but to thrive? And so Black Resilience Fund started as a GoFundMe. And when I first started Black Resilience Fund as a GoFundMe, I thought maybe we'll raise $5,000. We ended up raising $1 million in 29 days. And by the end of 2020, we had officially become a program of Brown Hope and had raised over $2.5 million that we had given out 100% as direct cash assistance to Black people in our very own community. And we did that as a grassroots movement with over 400 volunteers and over 11,000 individual donors. And we had these beautiful testimonials from Black people, Black neighbors in our very own community, smiling and thriving and just really showing that this isn't about a handout, but a hand up. And these are members of society who give back, who have inherent value, and how lucky we are that we're able to be there for each other in a way of true reciprocity, true care, and true love and respect. And so here are two testimonials that we had from Black Resilience Fund recipients. From Nahala, she said, "Facing these strange times, it is difficult to be certain about anything. This true act of kindness was contagious. I encourage us to be kind to one another on a daily basis. Kindness creates character and change." Jesse said, "My family and I were stacked financially, mentally, and emotionally, having to navigate a move, the global crisis, my mentoring nonprofit, and the news of late. Holding that check in my hand is when I felt I could come up for air. Thank you." And that goes to show again that the generosity of everyday Portlanders, how we made it during a time of I can't breathe. That was the chant that was filling the streets every day and night in 2020. You have this Black man saying that he is coming up for air. That's the power of the Black Resilience Fund, and that is the power of Brown Hope. So fast forward to 2025, we've been doing a lot as an organization. Most of our work has been around building community because let's be honest, our economy is not where it was in 2020, and we have a lot of recovery and movement that needs to happen. And what we know that there is a wealth of right now in our communities, we have a wealth of people with genius, with dreams, with possibility, with truth and stories. And how do we create those intentional spaces to build relationships of trust, of solidarity, and relationships that create the healing that we need as a community? And so here's just a quick snapshot of some of the community building that Brown Hope has accomplished in 2025. We had an MLK celebration in January called Rise and Repeat, and we listened to excerpt of MLK's speech, The Other America, and that really helped us have a conversation around racial inequality and what steps forward have we done in 2025 and where do we have to go. We had Black History Month. We had 4 Black History Month events in February. One of them was called Melanated Medicine, which was a Black specific healing space for our community. We also had in March an event called Black and Bold, which celebrated Black authors. We created a platform to recognize legacy trailblazers like James Baldwin and Zora Neale Hurston, but we also had 4 local Portland Black authors speak on a panel and present their work. We also had another Interdependence Day event like we had in 2018. This is only the second time that Brown Hope has had an Interdependence Day event, and that was on July 2nd at Wilshire Park. It was a multiracial space. We had song, we had dialogue questions, we had a 24-minute recitation of part of Frederick Douglass's 4th of July speech, which he wrote in 1852, called "What to the American Slave is Your 4th of July?" Probably the most important community building action Brown Hope has achieved this year was We Are the Bridge Rise for Racial Justice, which was a week of action for the 5 year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. And as we all know, George Floyd changed the world. And for me personally, 2020 was the year of my entire life when I felt most hopeful when of this nation actually addressing the reality of racism and white supremacy. It gave me so much hope to see for over 100 days people in the streets marching and protesting, historic investments in Black businesses and Black led nonprofits, and actually seeing commitments of people across different races, genders, folks of different political backgrounds, all coming to a recognition that we have healing to do and we have justice that needs to be served. And so we've come a far way since 2020. And so Brown Hope organized this grassroots week of action that brought together a coalition of over 30 local nonprofits and organizations. And we came together as a united voice saying that it is time to, one, recognize and honor the memory of George Floyd and his legacy. And with that, we have a moral responsibility to amplify the movement for Black lives and to expand opportunities for Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities to thrive economically, socially, and spiritually. And so here's some pictures from the week of action. We had a nonviolence de-escalation training that kicked off the week of action. We had a community grief circle to help folks who are dealing with mental and emotional trauma related to George Floyd's murder and the current pain of this chaotic, divisive time that we live in politically. And then here are pictures from the rally and march where we had over 300 people, gather at Revolution Hall, and we marched all the way to Burnside Bridge, and we were there for 30 minutes. We had this moment of silence for George Floyd, and we recognized many Black people, unarmed Black people, who have been killed by the police in this country. Most recently, just in August, we had a block party called Amplify PDX, and it was for over 25 local social justice nonprofits. So building that collective power, and we had panels, we had tabling, we had poetry, we had music, we had activities for kids, and we had over 200 people come together as a way just to be more engaged in making Portland a better place and making sure that we are centering our values of social and racial justice. And so here's a shout out to all of the different organizations that were a part of that block party. And so as you see, Brown Hope is a special organization, and we understand that our power comes from people. And with that, we can accomplish the impossible. And so we have this vision board that we have offered to our supporters and in our meetings as a way for us to stay in this place of radical imagination as we continue to dream forward of what this work can look like as an organization moving forward, but also what can our community and our nation look like moving forward. And so this vision board asks one simple question: what's the picture of 2025 going to look like? And we layered pictures from the civil rights movement and also pictures of the Black Lives Matter movement of the past decade. And as you can see, we have different messages on the signs. There's different, we dress differently, however, we know that our vision and our goals are the same. We are marching towards justice and we're marching towards freedom. And so let us continue to uplift that vision. And it's a vision of victory. And so with that, I just encourage y'all to continue to learn more about Brown Hope. We have a once a month action team meeting that is on Zoom on the fourth Tuesdays of every month between 6:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. So I please encourage you to find ways to get involved in Brown Hope as a volunteer. We have a Slack workspace that you can join. There's information on our link tree, which we'll link in this video. And I just wanted to leave you with a quote from one of Brown Hope's dedicated volunteers. And this is from Linda, who said, "Volunteering at Brown Hope is an experience I'll always cherish. In service here, I found purpose and community. Hundreds of Portlanders come together to center caring during a crisis and ultimately to create a more equitable future for Portland." So we hope you will join this beautiful movement for racial healing. I believe it is time for all of us to experience freedom and to experience the kindness and the joy and the peace that comes by being one community. And we believe that we can do that through racial healing. And we believe we heal with hope. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation. So please again go to Brown Hope's website, www.brownhope.org, and learn more. With that, dream on, love and light. Bye.